Hey everybody, welcome back to an episode of the 3 Count. I'm War Machine MJ, and I'm here today to talk about Monday Night Raw from June the 15th, aka the fallout from Backlash, most importantly, the fallout from the greatest match ever! It was pretty good, by the way. You'll see our review of it eventually. Anyway, let's go ahead and kick off the show. Before we jump into this, they apparently let some civilians into the PC tapings, or at least for the Monday Night Raw tapings. There was hardcore fans and family allowed to tapings for whatever reason. And WWE's just kind of been lackadaisical when it comes down to the whole pandemic. Vince just treating it like a minor annoyance, having to scale back his operations while not actually being precautionary. Because no way the people in that crowd are 6 feet apart like they say they are. And apparently they don't like the crowd wearing, face masks. And of course, the PC had its first confirmed case at this week's tapings, where one of the future tapings, like everything has been wrapped up this week, but it was a future SmackDown episode that was being taped, wound up being pushed back and then scrapped altogether until the next day because there was a confirmed case, and WWE's not really doing a whole lot of screening or anything to cover their tracks on this one, or cover their ass, I should say. So yeah, they've been just not taking it as seriously as it should be. AEW, meanwhile, everybody gets tested. They get a little wristband that shows, hey, they tested negative, and they're good for the rest of the tapings. So, just goes to show how one person views the situation versus another. Anyway, we kicked off the show with Randy Orton bragging about defeating Edge at Backlash and sending him home to, after humiliating him, sending him home to his wife and kids. Of course, that then gave way to Edge's best friend, Christian, which they just kept beating us in the head with, to come out there and defend his best friend's honor. And anyway, then Orton tried to go Christian into one more match. Given that Christian's not cleared to compete, he gave him the option of an unsanctioned match. And that was a decision that Christian mulled over through the rest of the show. Come on, go away, stupid head. There we go. All right. But yeah, the the offer for that unsanctioned match would last until the end of the show. Of course, Edge is on the outs with a torn tricep, which he's gone through surgery and successful. In fact, they talked about it briefly on Monday Night Raw by showing up a still of somebody's shoulder being cut into. Ugh. Just kind of hovered. I don't get squeamish through a lot of things I see, but when it comes down to them doing surgeries on TV, it's just it's either surgeries or needles. It's just. Next, we had Kevin Owens taking on Angel Garza. Of course, Andrade and Zelina Vega were at ringside for Angel Garza's match. Not everything is no es bueno in Camp Vega, because during the match, Garza and Andrade started to get into it. Zelina Vega decided, I don't want to be a part of this, and she hightailed it to the back. Down the stretch, Andrade caused a distraction, allowing Kevin Owens to hit a stunner on Angel Garza, for the victory. Afterwards, Zelina Vega came out there and told them, this is what happens when you guys don't work as a cohesive unit. We need to work together. Cooler heads prevail for now. Next, we had an in-ring promo from MVP with one Bobby Lashley. Mostly just blasting Lana for being ultimately what cost Bobby Lashley his WWE Championship opportunity. Lana came out there and basically said, I'm not the problem. You're the problem, of course, calling MVP the problem. He proceeds to call her a thought and said that she's ruining Lashley's career. I got tickled at thought part. They're going back and forth, and then Bobby Lashley just throws his cards on the table. Airs his grievances, and he says, it's all about you getting famous. I haven't seen you lace up a pair of boots, Meanwhile, I've been over here putting in work. And then Lana made the crack that if she wanted to sleep with someone famous, she would have slept with Drew, and then Bobby just responded with, I want a divorce. So maybe that's it for Lana for a good while. Next we had follow up from last night's from Backlash's big brawl between the Street Profits and the Viking Raiders. Of course, during the scrap, the four men banded together to take on Akira Tozawa and a band of motorcycle ninjas. Because why the not? No, seriously, it was entertaining shit, and I like it. But here on Uproxx's notes from Monday Night Raw, it says Street Profits and Viking Raiders took on some ninjas. But yeah, basically, Street Profits and Viking Raiders, aka the Viking Profits. Honestly, they should have went with Street Raiders. That sounds pretty cool. Anyway, they were talking about a whole cinematic universe, nonetheless. And then Akira Tozawa and his ninjas rolled up, basically asking for sequel. And basically, he wants a rematch. And it wound up being Street Profits and Viking Raiders taking on some ninjas. Yeah, these ninjas were, of course, jobbers in ninja outfits. They got beat pretty easy. Two of them got pinned at the same time by Ivar and Montez Ford. After they both pulled off beautiful frog splashes. Afterwards, Tozawa, he tried to square up to the Viking Profits with his Super Ninja, which is basically the really, really skyscraper skyscraper tall recruit from the PC. I can't remember his name. But once again, Red Road tried to step up to the Super Ninja much like he did at Backlash, but the rest of the Viking prophets held him back, saying, "No, we got a contingency plan." And out came the Big Show, and he beat the hell out of the ninjas, while Tozawa and Super Ninja made their retreat. Next, we had Seth Rollins addressing the rumors that Dominic Mysterio was in the building. Yeah, Seth Rollins took the threat very, very lightheartedly. Then Rey Mysterio chimed in, basically said, "I didn't know that Dominic was going to go to Raw. But if Seth Rollins put his hands on Dominic or hurt him in any way, he'd end Seth Rollins." Then Seth Rollins kind of just brushed him off. And he apparently had sent Murphy and Austin Theory to go look for Dominic, but to no avail, as Dominic came straight out of nowhere, beat the tar out of Seth Rollins, and then juked and jived the oncoming Murphy and Theory to escape in the crowd and just get away. And I gotta say, I love this juking and jiving from Dominic. He's a big dude, but he knows how to move. Next, we had a backstage segment where MVP and Bob Lashley challenged Drew McIntyre and R-Truth to a tag team to a winner-take-all championship match. The whole enchilada kicked off because, well, this tag team match was already advertised as just a straight-up tag team match. But then R-Truth went around running his mouth to MVP and Lashley. Started running his mouth because Drew McIntyre would back him up. Well, Drew McIntyre wasn't there at that specific instance, so R-Truth had to run and hide from a very irate Bob Lashley and MVP. He hid under one of the practice rings at the Performance Center when one of the ninjas chased him out. But yeah, he started talking some more shit to Lashley and MVP when Drew McIntyre rolled up. And basically, MVP was trying to bait Drew McIntyre into putting his title on the line in that tag match, and then inferred that he would also love if R-Truth would put up his 24/7 championship in the match as well. And before Drew McIntyre could even come back with some sort of witty response or tell him no, R-Truth just kind of answered for him, making it a winner-take-all match. So we'd see them a little bit later on. Next, up until this point, Christian had been mulling over whether or not he should accept Randy Orton's challenge. He even got advice from the Big Show, basically saying, "Listen, man, if that were me, I wouldn't let Randy Orton get away with that. Because if he did, I'd punch the smug grin off his face, pop him with one of these." And so Christian finally decides to he decides to take the challenge. He accepts the challenge for it later on in the night. Next, we had the Iconics taking on Natalya and Liv Morgan in a short and sweet match, as the Iconics picked up the victory over Natalya and Liv Morgan. Afterwards, the Iconics challenged Bayley and Sasha Banks to a women's tag team championship match if um, Bayley and Sasha um, make it with their championships in tow after their title defense on NXT TV. Next, we had a highly unnecessary backstage segment between Ric Flair and Charlotte where Rick essentially asked, "What's next?" Charlotte just wooed and walked off. Didn't solve anything. Next, we had Apollo Crews taking on Shelton Benjamin. Before the match, MVP tried to recruit Apollo Crews into his portfolio, into his fold. And Apollo Crews basically said, "Listen, I appreciate it, but I'm doing my own thing." During the match, Shelton Benjamin tried to pin Apollo Crews with his feet on the ropes, but he got caught. So Apollo Crews decides to turn about fair play. Rolled him up in a small package, hooked an arm underneath on a rope, and, well, came out smelling like roses. There was a .com exclusive where MVP tried to bring Shelton Benjamin into his clientele. Next, R-Truth was being cornered by Akira Tozawa and his ninjas, including a ninja referee for his 24/7 championship. Of course, they got cold feet when they saw Drew McIntyre roll up. Drew McIntyre just basically set R-Truth down and told him what he did was wrong, without, he accepted that challenge without consulting Drew McIntyre, since that's Drew McIntyre's, prize too. R-Truth basically said, "Yeah, I know what I do. I know what I gotta do. Just believe in me." Come back from commercial, and R-Truth rolls up on Drew McIntyre, who's just kind of like waiting for good news. R-Truth said he talked to management, and in this tag team match, there's only going to be one belt on the line, and that's the WWE Championship. And yeah, McIntyre was basically, perplexed that R-Truth would do something like this, and R-Truth was like, "Listen, believe in me. I need somebody to believe in me." So, yeah. After that, we had a Viking Prophets and Big Show segment where Big Show was an honorary member of the Viking Prophets, and he weighed his input on what's next for the anything you can do, I can do, or we can do better series, which Hanson tried to voted for Carpool Karaoke, which Big Show basically said, "For the love of Beethoven, no, never again, don't do that." And Big Show had a clear challenge. Street Profits, Viking Raiders for the Raw Tag Team Championships next week. And then, all five of them did the "We want the smoke," but Big Show's like, "Hey, how about next time? How about you say it, kind of different? We want the smoke." It's a nice reference. Next, we had that tag team match between R-Truth and Drew McIntyre taking on MVP and Bob Lashley. Winner got the WWE Championship. And it was a good little match. The whole story of this match was Drew McIntyre giving R-Truth a chance, even though R-Truth kept getting his ass kicked in the match. Down the finish, McIntyre put down MVP with the Claymore, and then mulled it over for a quick second, tagged in R-Truth, hit a rocket launcher on MVP and allowed R-Truth to pick up the victory, and they stood tall. Next, it was confirmed that Rey Mysterio will return next week. And then there was a backstage segment where, as Christian was taping up his wrist, Ric Flair told him, "Don't do it, man. Just walk away. Don't do it." Next, we had a Bayley and Sasha Banks celebration, not only celebrating their victory at Backlash, but Bayley's birthday. Of course, they were interrupted by the Iconics, who challenged them, once again, and then they brawled, and then we got the match next week, again with the emphasis on if Bayley and Sasha still have their title by the end of Wednesday. Next, we had a Backlash rematch as Asuka took on Nia Jax for the Raw Women's Championship. Down the stretch, Nia Jax hit Asuka with a Samoan drop, went for the pin, but Asuka got her foot under the rope to break up the pin. Nia Jax was arguing with the ref. Of course, she then shoved the ref. The ref was getting ready to disqualify her until Asuka rolled her up, and the referee hit a fast count, which, yep, we're going to get another match between these two. Huzzah. Next, well, that led us to our main event. It was an unsanctioned match between Christian and Randy Orton. Both men had come out there. Announcements were made. Before the bell rung, Ric Flair came out there one last time to keep Christian from fighting. And Christian's like, "Step aside, old man, I gotta do this." And then Ric Flair gave him the old right to the cojones. Orton then punted Christian and pinned him. Afterwards, while the EMTs were helping Christian to the back, he just kept yelling at Christian that he didn't want to do this, and that's all his fault. So, yeah. That was Monday Night Raw. It's a decent show. So yeah. That being said, if you miss Rod and his opinions, he has a podcast called Prime Talk with Rodimus Prime. You should really go check that out. It's on the Castbox app. That being said, I'm War Machine MJ. This has been 3 Count, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.